Afternoon. So this session on the arts and economic vitality will have as speaker Leslie Castellano and also mural project coordinator of Eureka Chinatown project, Brieanne D'Souza. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And so a little about Leslie real quick is she is a very active member of Humboldt County's art community. She's an educator, an artist, a business owner, organizer, volunteer, and a City of Eureka council member. Caring for people and building community is at the core of all of her myriad of endeavors. And in addition to her role as executive director at People Center for the Arts, she is an advisor for the Eureka Cultural Arts District and is the director for the Performing Arts Venue. I'm going to let Brieanne tell us as you guys go forward about being coordinator of the Eureka Chinatown project, the art festival, and wayfinding signs and all the good things you're doing. So real quick, I was formerly executive director of the Grass Valley Downtown Association, and we worked very closely with our Nevada County Arts Council, who got us in Grass Valley this designation as a cultural district. It is not an easy task, and we're so proud of that because we are one of the communities that is rural and is also a dual cultural district. So Grass Valley and Nevada City are two small towns right next to each other, and we are one cultural district. And Truckee, right above us towards Reno, is also part of the cultural district community. So, you know, we've done art in storefronts, share the love campaigns, community art and flags. So we're just very much looking forward to hearing what you've been up to. Leslie, take it away.
Thanks so much, Marnie. And yeah, Eureka is also one of the cultural arts districts. And, you know, as you said, it's not an easy task, and there are many, many people involved in that process. And, you know, through that, it's created a lot of opportunities for more people to kind of come to the forefront. And so I just want to go ahead and give Brieanne an opportunity to introduce herself and her work in Eureka, and then we'll go into more detail on that later on in this presentation. Brieanne, I'll turn it over to you for a moment.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Brieanne D'Souza, and I'm the project coordinator of the Eureka Chinatown project. Really, I am a volunteer community member just working to create different projects and installations around the historic Chinatown that once stood here in Eureka, and really celebrate the Chinese community that once thrived here. Really, I do it because I want to help my community and to help my family. I just had a baby. I guess he's past infant state. Well, he's still an infant. He's 8 months old. So I think, you know, it's really for my family and for him and growing up here and helping to just enrich our community as well. So I will talk to you in a little bit more about the Chinatown project. Thanks, Leslie.
Thanks, Brieanne. And that, just to touch on what Brieanne said, that sense of enriching the community for the well-being of your family and for the other members of your community, I think that's something that we all care about, you know, from a Main Street perspective and also from the work of artists. And to touch on Mayor Seaman's talk about art, about change, you know, I think artists are very well situated to help communities respond to and address to change because of their capacity for creative communication that really gives inspiration to, you know, to residents and citizens, as well as visitors, about the hope and possibility of the future as we better understand our history and reckon with the present. And next slide, I'll get used to this switching slides thing. So this image just represents that our communities, our main streets are more than the sum of the parts. You know, they're more than their businesses, they're more than the visitors. There's that shared network and experience that happens in the imaginations of people as they come to a place and experience the culture of that place. It's why we love our communities and why they're each unique and why we love to visit one another's communities. Next slide. So just a little bit about arts and culture. Also, hi everyone. I'm really excited to be here. It's really just lovely. So in case you don't know yet, I will be talking a lot about arts and culture. Arts and culture provides a wide variety of economic and human development, town, city development possibilities, including improving individual well-being, unifying communities, improving academic performance, strengthening the economy, driving tourism and revenue to local businesses. Just a little bit on that. When there's a number of when someone comes to see a show, like a theater show, on average they spend between $37 and $50 in surrounding businesses when they go out to see a show, and that's each individual. And so if you think about, sometimes we forget that, supporting the arts and cultural opportunities in our city also supports our businesses. The arts sparks creativity and innovation, drives the creative industries, has social impact, improves healthcare, provides jobs, and and within each of those factors, there's just these are, and I want to keep talking about, these are individuals, these are working individuals who are really working hard in the communities. I'll get in later into the sort of the invisible labor of artists, but I want to keep coming back to, we have these results, and then we have the people who are living their everyday lives, who are, as Brieanne said, like working to provide homes and possibilities for the future. Next slide. Creativity and innovation. Just a little bit about Humboldt County, and I imagine many of your communities are really on the cusp of new economic opportunities. Locally, we have some possibilities for, major wind infrastructure, broadband and technology infrastructure, innovation in wood products and food production. And all of these are really about how we wrestle with humans' impact on the world around us and how we prepare better lives for the future. And so artists within these contexts are really the creative thinkers, right? They're the folks who, as part of their practice, ask questions, or as part of their practice, have to notice the world in a deeper way. And so relatedly, new industries and innovators choose where they locate based on the arts and cultural opportunities available. It's found that when, especially in the technology sector, when people choose where they locate, and during the pandemic as well, that people often relocated based on the cultural opportunities available in the communities where they're choosing to live. As I said before, creative thinking helps us boost our capacity to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Next slide. Hey, Shoshana. Yeah, and feel free to, pipe in things in the chat. Just any questions you might have. If you have little kind of personal impact stories of artists or projects that you want to throw in the chat. We all do things differently, and it's great to hear about what folks are doing. Artists create connections. Often, I think Main Streets, and I'm on the board of Eureka Main Street, and I really value, Amanda and our other fellow board members, if any of them are here. But I think Main Streets and businesses can really struggle to, again, with growing the size of their audience, or with feeling a sense of scope and scale in relationship to the larger community and relationship to change. And working with artists creates opportunities for new audiences, new messaging, new senses, a new sense of how we integrate, our day-to-day lives with like what's happening kind of on the forefront. For many years before becoming a council person, I ran a like semi-underground venue and performance space that was, often not overlooked, but we were definitely like celebrated fringe culture, right? And that, within that, maybe, for many years, I was not, I would say, like part of maybe who people thought about when they thought about who might be a leader in the city of Eureka. But, for 14 years, I was developing networks with other artists and other culture bearers. And when I came, to the decision to run for council, I specifically reached out to all of the people in my community and asked people to weigh in on like what role could I fill in my community with a position of power, or with a position of a different kind of power. And through those connections, I found that there was just immense support for leadership that was rooted in a love of other cultural perspectives. And that is something that, and it's a practice, right? I'm learning every day, but that kind of, I think, love of people and of the challenges and like situational like difficulties that we face, and that also sense of beauty, I think really puts artists in a unique vantage point for helping to usher in well-being for the community. Next slide. One thing that that communities can do is to take an inventory of arts and cultural assets and really look at the people and the relationships that are part of that. It's, and again, realize that your first inventory may be incomplete. You may not have a good sense. And so, as you start to track and monitor your cultural assets, to ask other people for insight, to go to communities that you may not be like at the center of, and like ask them if there's people who you're missing, if there are relationships that are missing. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And relatedly, don't wait for people to come to you. Often, the people who may have the most value or most insight in your community are people who may have been excluded from your community. And so if you wait for people to come to you, you're going to be missing a lot of people. And so and again, like the first time you talk to someone or the first time you reach out to someone, they may not be comfortable talking with you. You may represent something or a sense of power that has been unavailable. And so it's this commitment to regular relationship building that's absolutely necessary. Next slide. This is just sort of a filler slide, but just to say that relationship where, people go from kind of being anonymous to actually having stories. And that's something that, artists are storytellers and are, really about taking sort of a mass of people and understanding the history and relationships that folks have. And next slide. Okay, now we'll get into some specifics about Eureka. There's 3 different kind of projects that I want to talk about. And one is the Eureka Street Art Festival. The other is, and I'll turn it over to Brieanne at that point, the Eureka Chinatown project. And then finally the Daguru Louis, the Wiyot Cultural Center that's being developed in Eureka right now. And for the Eureka Street Art Festival, it's a Dreammaker program with the Ink People, but I really want to lift up the work of Swan Asbury, who's the City of Eureka Economic Development Coordinator and Manager, and Jenna Katsos and Michelle, who owns, who I'll get to her business. Actually, go ahead and go to the next slide. She's the owner of the Humboldt Cider Company. And they have been working together for 5 years now to put on a street art festival in Eureka. And this festival has been an incredible example of building partnerships between the business community and artists, to kind of lift up different sites and locations throughout Eureka to kind of, I don't want to say clean up, but to beautify and really bring that sense of story, that sometimes it can be hidden in a place, right? When someone comes to a place, you may not see the story. And that's something I would challenge you to, like, if someone can come to your community and not understand the histories and stories that are kind of wrestling within your community or underneath, the labor that's gone to make your community, there's opportunities there to lift up those stories. And so Humboldt Cider Company has done a really great job of using their business and using their platform to shine a light on artists and stories and build numerous bridges between like their kind of economic platform as well as their sense of community well-being. Next slide. And this is one of the founders of the festival, Jenna Katsos. This is a mural she created that's specific to wayfinding in the city of Eureka. And so this is located just off of, the city of Eureka is on the 101 corridor in Northern California. And so this is a slide, a mural that's just off of the corridor that really helps people kind of see, where Eureka is contextually, as well as where businesses and cultural sites are within the city. Next slide. And so this idea, the ongoing recognition and healing of past harms, and I want to say, I realized after I made this slide that, and the lifting up of like resilience within that story is something that I think is a really valuable component of arts and economic vitality and that relationship. So for me, I just want to say that our economic vitality is only so great as the vitality of all of the residents within our community. And so when we look at a plan for economic well-being, we have to really look at health and wellness and sense of possibility for the people around us. Because if we leave anyone out, we've left people out, but also we need to address these things. If the longer we leave people out of our communities and out of our consideration, or we don't acknowledge the harms that have happened in the past, just the longer we're waiting to do that, honestly. There's no time like the present to start really developing a sense of like whose stories have been forgotten or whose stories have been changed through the power or interest of other groups. Because I think the more we can build a cohesive sense of power and vitality within our communities, the better we can serve all of the people within our individual communities, but also within the state. And this is where I will turn it over to Brieanne to talk about the Eureka Chinatown project.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's Brieanne again. Can you hear me okay? Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Leslie. I'm so excited to be here, and I second everything that you said. I'm here today to talk to you about the Eureka Chinatown project, which is one of the many cultural and art initiatives in Eureka to help tell more stories and lift communities up, like Leslie said. You can go ahead and go on to the next slide. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the historic Chinatown that stood in Eureka before 1885. The Eureka Chinatown is a community collaboration with the Humboldt Asians and Pacific Islanders in Solidarity, which is a Dreammaker program of the Ink people. The ECP is a true community effort, and it involves the city of Eureka, local businesses, and driven by community members that are passionate about growing an inclusive culture here, and ultimately creating a sense of belonging that has been lost for generations on the North Coast. We're working on a series of projects and installations to memorialize the Chinese community that used to stand here, again, before 1885. And I can't really tell you about this project without giving you a brief history lesson, because that's really where our project is centered. So sit tight with me. We're going to take you back a few years and head into the 1860s, where Chinese people came to Northern California in prospect of Gamsan, or Gold Mountain. As at first, they were welcomed, but once their strength and productivity was recognized, they were seen as competition. So they were taxed out of the gold fields pretty quickly. In Eureka, they opened laundries, gardens, became cooks, fishermen, and merchants. And the Chinese people also built most of the railroads and roads in Humboldt County. At its peak, the Eureka Chinatown rivaled the size of San Francisco's Chinatown at the time. However, the national view of Chinese people became very negative, and that trickled down to create a strong local anti-Chinese sentiment. Tensions rose and came to a 1885, when Eureka City Council member was fatally shot when caught between a crossfire between two men, and locals blamed or really said that those two men were two Chinese men, although no one was ever convicted for that crime. And overnight, white townspeople, with support of local leaders, rounded up all the Chinese people and sent them on ships down to San Francisco. But really, overnight, a vibrant, thriving community was decimated and soon forgotten. Surrounding cities followed suit, and this systemic racial cleansing became known up and down the West Coast as the Eureka Method. Unfortunately, the discrimination didn't end there. For generations, Chinese and Asian people were strongly discouraged from living, working, and even visiting Humboldt County. And over time, Asian Americans just stopped coming up here. It was considered unsafe. Until the 1950s, when Ben Chin arrived, unknown, and opened Eureka's first modern day Chinese restaurant. So if you're in the area, definitely check out Chin's Cafe over on Broadway. It's no longer owned by the family, but that's where he opened up his first shop, or his actually second restaurant. So if you can go ahead and go on to the next slide. We're going to fast forward to today, where the past has been forgotten until now. The Eureka Chinatown project is working to bring awareness and education to our past, to foster healing and growth in our community. Since last April, we have done a lot, mostly through Zoom and through a pandemic, but we have about 30 volunteers working with many different partners within the community to install a handful of projects on the block of the historic Chinatown, as well as many educational components as well. So we worked with the city of Eureka to write a proclamation declaring May as Asian American Heritage Month last May. And we commissioned and installed a 20 by 30 foot mural during the Eureka Street Art Festival that was sponsored by Pablo and Barkley. We worked with the city to create 2 interpretive wayfinding signs that will inform passerbys of the Chinese community and the expulsion. We have hosted and continue to host monthly donation-based walking tours with the Clark Museum. That's what you see pictured here. We have worked with the Moon family and the city of Eureka to name the alley historic Chinatown Charlie Moon Way. We designed a monument expected to break ground hopefully this month, and it's on the property and sponsored by Coast Central Credit Union. We are working on creating a digital and printed self-guided walking tour with a student intern from Cal Poly. And we're hoping that that will help to let people, educate themselves on that block there, residents and visitors alike. We are currently drafting a school curriculum to help teachers educate on the local history. And we are really excited to have our first outdoor event and ribbon cutting ceremony and street festival celebrating the Year of the Tiger, as well as all of the Eureka Chinatown projects coming up here in May, on May 7th. So in addition to all that, this project has gained a lot of support very quickly through community members and partners. And there's always new ideas coming up and new energy coming in and more support. And so, I think that there's just a lot more that will come out of this project as we continue to move forward. But that's what we're working on right now. Let's see, I think you can head on to the next slide. So pictured here is the 20 by 30 foot mural that was installed during the Eureka Street Art Festival. And this mural tells a story of the Chinatown block that once stood here and the living conditions that the people here faced that wasn't necessarily, of their doing. The man that you see down in the corner, that is Ben Chin when he was enlisted in the Navy. So after kind of going through the projects and what we're doing, why are we doing all of this? We do it because we want to be part of creating a community known for being a place where people feel represented, included, and welcomed in the art and culture of Eureka. It's the giant redwoods that draw people up here, but we want to be part of the reason why they stay and come back again and again. Like the fertile soils that grow the tallest trees, we want to contribute to Eureka becoming a place where people of all backgrounds, especially Asian Americans, come to find a common culture and opportunity. They want to set up businesses and grow their families. And we want to help create a place where Chinese and other diverse communities grow and thrive here once more. So that's all I kind of have for you all. If you have any questions, of course, you're welcome to ask them, I guess in the chat or later. But thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Brieanne. Does anyone have any questions for Brieanne before we move on? I feel like feel free to put them in the chat, or I don't know if we have a raise hand feature. Okay. One of the things that really struck me about when you were talking, Brieanne, was Eureka becoming a place where all people of all backgrounds find opportunity. And to me, that is really at the heart of that relationship between economic development and community vitality. Let's go ahead to the next slide. And this was from an article about the project. And Charlie Moon is one of the few people who remained in Eureka after many people were shipped out. And so this is one of his descendants. When you look around Humboldt County or any county in California, you have to ask yourself, how did they get that? That was on the backs of the Chinese and the workers and the Native Americans that they had to move out of the way or use. And this is Yolanda Latham, descendant of Charlie Moon. Next slide. And so I want to talk about the Wiyot people of Eureka, and so Eureka and Wiyot, this is Jalrujiji, and we're on indigenous Wiyot land here, those of us who are in Eureka. And not long after I was on council, I had the opportunity to participate and support the return of Tuluwat Island to the Wiyot people. And so that's Tuluwat Island you see, and then kind of the ceremony, as well as some traditional dancers there who have started some of their world renewal dances in return of those. In 1860, there was a Wiyot massacre on Tuluwat Island and in Eureka, where the majority of Wiyot peoples were massacred while preparing for their world's renewal celebration. Next slide. And so as I just, as someone, with privilege who lives in Eureka, this is a history that I personally wrestle with. And, I know that it's not easy, and there's always work to do. And so it's been really exciting to see the growth and return of Wiyot voices. We have people who've been living in our communities, since that time and since time immemorial. And now we're seeing within the city itself a resurgence. And I think some of that is from the fact that people have been working to recognize the harms of the past. That really opens up a door for people to bring their culture forward and feel that they're seen and heard and respected. So opening this year, the Wiyot tribe is opening Daguru Lui Cultural Center. And so you can see it in development. And I snapped these pictures partially to also show that, this is really situated right within our main town. And so you kind of see these reflections of the Main Street district there. And I spoke with Marnie Atkins. She's at she's the cultural anthropologist for the cultural center, and she's at a really important meeting right now. But so I'm hoping that's going well. But Daguru Lui means the ongoing return of all. And according to Marnie, when naming our new cultural center, Daguru Lui Cultural Center, we wanted a name that described that this place will house the ongoing return of all thoughts, things, ideas, and initiatives that are important to Wiyot people. This includes sacred and ceremonial practices, Sulat Luk, the Wiyot language, lifeways, cultural traditions, healthy land, water, air, plants, and animals, the return of our ancestors from museums so they can be laid to rest, a voice in our collective history, and a stronger, more cohesive Wiyot community. Daguru Lui encompasses these ideas and goals. And so that will be opening this year. Next slide. So I'm just gonna, and so just take a moment just to, reflect on those, the Street Art Festival, the Eureka Chinatown project, and the Wiyot Cultural Center as examples and hopefully beacons of what could be possible in your communities. And I know that you all have, things you're working on as well. I want to bring the conversation back a little bit just to the artists themselves that are doing this work. And often artists, work with what's called invisible labor, where people don't kind of see the work that goes into the art practice, the training, or even in our cultural events that, someone's leading those drum classes, someone is, making the masks or making the costumes or, rehearsing the songs, and that takes time and energy, and people, often artists, too often are laboring for free. And so I just want to lift up that as much as possible, as leaders within your community, really find ways to recognize the labor and the efforts of artists. There are some great opportunities on the horizon. I'm sure Marnie Marshall is aware of, if you can advocate for funding for cultural arts districts right now, please do so. But some really great opportunities, to help fund arts programs and initiatives, but it really takes that synthesis of businesses and city leadership and arts organizations to bring that funding to the communities is often very competitive. And so if you're not networking to find that funding and to work to, to really be competitive to achieve it, you may not get it in your community. Next slide. One thing that Ink People did in partnership with Humboldt Area Foundation is we've been really working to find opportunities to pay artists, right? And so this is the Funds for Artist Resilience program. And right now we're in the process of offering artist resilience mini grants. And so these are grants from, not much really in the grand scheme of things, but $300 to $500 that helps support, small artist initiatives within, actually within Del Norte, Trinity, and Humboldt County. And it's amazing how many artists have reached out to me and said that this is exactly the thing they need to kind of keep their artwork going. And so these grants will fund rehearsal time, supplies, doing a public event, creative artist projects. We tried to keep the parameters really open so that they can meet as many artists as possible. And then go ahead to next slide. Oh, and related to those artist resilience mini grants, there will be what's proposed, coming down the line for the budget, for the governor's budget funding for kind of an artist works program. And so this would be works programs for artists doing cultural work to benefit community building. So definitely keep an eye out for that. The funding hasn't been released yet, but it will provide good opportunities for your communities. Other opportunities I want to lift up are, of course, cultural districts, which we've talked about, strategic arts plans, regional arts networks, artists in residence, arts nights. I'm guessing that a lot of you have arts nights already taking place in your community. That's things like Arts Alive, like a monthly open arts kind of based event, arts walks, things like that. And thanks to Amanda for providing leadership for that through Eureka Main Street. I want to just lift up a little bit the idea of a strategic arts plan. That's something that both Eureka and Arcata have implemented over the last few years. And again, thanks to Swan Asbury for all her leadership on that. And I know Shoshana has been working on that within the city of Arcata. But this is where a city is actually kind of taking the lead to develop strategies for implementing arts projects and plans, as well as kind of arts tools for the community. And so it can look like a number of things. We are soon to be updating our strategic arts plan, but this provides kind of both pathways for artists to understand how to kind of work within the city. Like, how do you put a mural up on a business, right? Like, how do you busk when you go to a city? And also some specific projects that we've worked with the larger community to kind of prioritize. So, and this can also then be useful, I think, again, when a city is going to look for funding for arts related projects, that you've done this kind of more institutional level work. And this is a great opportunity for artists and city leaders, business owners, and cultural organizations to work together. And next slide. So I just want to say thank you to the Wiyot tribe and Marnie Atkins, Humboldt Asians and Pacific Islanders. Oh, I have a typo there. In Solidarity, and Brieanne and Marilyn Pig Nicely, and all of the folks involved with that. Eureka Main Street and Amanda Kruschke. Am I saying that right? I feel like I should know. Ink People and Libby Maynard, who's the executive director of the Ink People before I was. So for sure, I'm kind of stepping into many things that she's been doing. Swan Asbury and the whole City of Eureka Economic Development team. And then Alicia Gallos from this organization who I've been working with a lot. Thank you so much to everyone who put this on. And final slide. And this is my contact information. And And I made this before I was sure if Brieanne could join us. So if Brieanne, if you'd like to put your contact information in the chat, you can. And now I will hand it back over. Thanks, everyone.